Welcome to the Big Screen Bulls podcast, a podcast where Caleb Kendall and Christian McCright give their reviews and reactions to what's happening on the big screen. They talk about films, TV series, and other forms of media entertainment. Episodes are released every Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. Be sure to follow the show's Instagram page at Big Screen Bulls Podcast, where new hints and updates will be released about future episodes.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Big Screen Bulls Podcast, where we have my wingman here, Christian McCright, jumping on the line.
All right, good morning or good afternoon or whatever time that you're listening to this. I don't really know.
Oh yeah, but thank you guys for jumping back in here with us. Again, like you could tell from the title, we're going to be covering the second part of our three-part series, ranking the MCU universe movies.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the middle 10. So it's going to be 20 through 11.
And I'll let you folks know, I'm having a blast rating these right now. I've already had hate comments. I'm just glad everybody doesn't know my address, so I don't get mailers or bag of dog poop on fire or whatever.
You put Captain America 1 in the bottom 10? How dare you? Well, you know what? The first hour is great, and the rest of it is not so great. Yeah, I've gotten a handful of responses, some of them directly by like text or call saying, hey, like, I love what you did, except for this pick right here. And I'm like, well, congratulations. That ain't going to change nothing.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to go back into the podcast and change it.
I have an amendment.
No, but I really appreciate it. Even if it's like
yeah,
kind of nasty and stuff like that. I think it's funny.
I hope you die if you put Captain America 1 in your bottom 10. That's funny.
But I think the ones we're going to go through right now, it's like they're in the middle pick. So it's like, okay, like I agree it could go there. Like everybody should.
For me, I feel like I'm going to have some controversial picks in this one. This is actually the one I'm most anticipating out of all of the parts that we're doing for this series. So,
well,
but that's
folks, don't worry about me. I'm pretty cookie cutter on mine, I think.
Yeah, we are going to do those middle 10, and then on later episodes we're going to get to the top 10, so be on the lookout for that. But well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Kendall, what is your number 20?
Number 20 for me is Thor: Love and Thunder.
Okay,
so we're starting into phase 4 here for me, and I think you're going to see kind of a trend in this direction to see a lot of phase 4 movies into here, because a lot of them share one thing in common. They're beautiful pieces of cinema. The majority of it.
It's a good looking movie.
The majority of phase 4 did a really good job. Like, again, technology's here. CGI teams and stuff like that have become a lot more sophisticated and can pump out movies a lot quicker than what they have been beforehand. So again, beautiful movie. Another good thing, Jane Foster, I like her the most probably in this movie.
Really interesting.
Compared to what I've seen her before in the past. I think it's a little bit weird to have the whole plot line of her having cancer and Thor powers is the only thing that's able to heal her from it, but it accelerates it. I think that's a little bit weird, my taste or my opinion. But no, I kind of like the co powers. I like how the hammer now it's like a new ability now where it can split into multiple pieces.
It's really cool.
That is really cool. Thor's handsome and jacked again.
It looks good in this movie.
Oh yeah. It kind of brings in some new plot points. Best thing it does though, and you'll see this one is ranked really low for me by how good of a villain it had. You have Christian Bale come through, play an absolute amazing performance. Again, a very serious actor with a lot of his performance. Makes you really think about even what Thor learned with this movie of how to become a better god or be a better just beneficiary to this society and universe he serves in. What does it do wrong? You take a very, very serious actor playing a very serious role and you put it inside of the goofiest Thor movie to date.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You have karate kicks. You have the love interest with the hammer, with the axe and the hammer, which is it's funny.
I think it's
cool.
funny.
But I feel like it just doesn't blend together at all. Like you go from really high, like really happy, lighthearted type stuff, and then it goes into the main antagonist. And I don't know, I just don't feel the connection there of what it should be. And the kids at the end having their Thor powers gifted upon them to fight this battle, that was a little strange, a little bit outlandish.
Okay.
Thor should have been doing that a long time ago in Infinity War, if that's really what we're doing.
Just gives everybody Thor powers.
Yeah.
It's a good point, actually. I didn't think about that.
But I think they kind of wasted the whole entire like meeting with the gods moment in some ways as well too.
It went by really fast.
Yeah, just throw a lightning bolt, pierces Zeus's chest, and you're out of there.
But he doesn't die.
And then they're going to bring him back for new stuff. But I like the whole entire thought behind the movie and the lesson that was learned in it, though. Gods are kind of like pieces of junk just because they have all this power and don't wish to give it to the people that need it the most. Because like even that beginning scene was probably some of the most powerful scene I think I've seen in an MCU universe movie.
It's one of the best opening scenes of any MCU film.
Yeah,
I think
the clash wasn't there though for me. Christian Bale acted his butt off, and I just don't think the blend was there for this movie.
Yeah,
again, great movie. But it's got to go number 20.
So my number 20 is actually going to be Black Panther 2. Wakanda Forever. So if you've listened to our review about it, you're already going to know what I'm about to say. If you haven't, please go watch that first, because I'm just going to summarize this real quick about my thoughts. This movie is a great tribute to Chadwick Boseman, and I love that aspect of it. That aspect is done super well. And it's emotional. It's heart-wrenching. It's just a good tribute to him. But as its own standalone story, it has a lot of issues and it has a lot of character moments that I don't particularly like. It follows mostly Shuri and Okoye, and then Shuri's mom, played by Angela Bassett. Either or. She acts her butt off in this movie, and she is phenomenal. She has some of the most powerful scenes in the entire movie. Shuri is kind of driven by vengeance, and I think this is an interesting fact because it actually relates her to the main antagonist, who is Namor. I think Namor is actually really done well.
Yeah.
I like this new version of Namor probably a little bit more than I do in the comics. I like how they tie it to the Mayan culture. I enjoy his character. I enjoy, he's obviously very, he's very reactive, but also he loves his people, because at the heart of the day, like he, like at the heart of what he's about being that kind of like a god king for his people. And it's interesting to see Shuri when she, by the way, spoilers for this movie. So she is driven by vengeance. And so later on, whenever she's able to recreate the synthetic plant, she essentially is trying to see her family in the astral plane, or the ancestral plane. Yeah. But she sees Killmonger instead, which I think is a really good creative choice. And he's basically like, your brother was too noble. Look at where he is now. And I was just there to take care of stuff. And what are you going to do? And she spends the whole movie just being like, not the whole movie. She spends like half of this movie like, I'm going to go and kill Namor. And that's that. And she like shakes her finger at people and she's like, I'm going to go kill him and you're going to help me. And I don't like that for her character. I think that if going through a situation like that is obviously really hard. And so I can't attest to that, but like from a character perspective, not from her character, from the other characters, when you're receiving that and being like, oh, this person is wearing the Black Panther suit, which by the way had like not really like any glorious moment. She just kind of dropped in with the Black Panther suit. Then she was like, I'm going to kill Namor and you're all going to help me. And they were like, okay. And I don't know. I don't know about that. Riri Williams' Ironheart is good. A little misplaced, I think. I think she's a little underutilized. And also her suit looks really weird.
Yeah, and kind of forgotten about in the second half of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's more of like a Power Ranger. And so for me, that just didn't work for me. The end credit scene is really good. So my overall thoughts on this movie is it's good. It's a great tribute to Chadwick Boseman, but it is but as a standalone movie, I just don't think it works that well.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, and yeah, we'll talk about it here in a little bit more here in a second. So,
what's your number 19?
Number 19 for me is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
That's I can tell by the look in your face that hurt you a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have mine in a different place, but I think I kind of already assumed that it would be, because you've mentioned multiple times, like, oh, it's like the Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange and the mom.
Yeah. But again, like we're gonna say here about the first one, my 20th pick, beautiful movie, cool scenes, even almost written somewhat like a horror movie in some ways, which is, it's different, and I kind of liked it. And yeah, Doctor Strange power sets and stuff like that. It's the most unique ways that he can be able to manipulate power and energy and all that. That's really, really cool. And I also kind of liked Wanda being the villain in this one as well too, because it was kind of anticipated coming forward as well too. But still at the same time, I don't know how much I liked Wanda and her motivation behind all of this and how quick it came about. When we were first doing this podcast, I think we talked about, like, it seemed like Wanda went 0 to 100, like, pretty quick to go to the manic stage that she was in, to be able to want to kill innocent people to try to reclaim a different universe to be able to see her kids in.
Yeah,
and
I can understand that.
I don't know, when she was one of the good guys for such a long time, and we see just a brief period of WandaVision where it seemed like she learned something from the WandaVision type piece, and she wasn't out to hurt innocent people, but she goes completely overboard.
Yeah,
within it. So that I really didn't like. It's Multiverse of Madness. Again, we don't really see a whole lot of the multiverses and how different they are. Only thing we see is the whole entire the Illuminati squad or whatever.
The squad.
And just how fodder they are in this movie. Like,
yeah, they get decimated.
And if they're thinking about having a Fantastic Four movie and had the lead character just be put in a complete fodder like that, I don't even know if I'm going to watch it at this point, just because of how weak you can already tell it is. And I don't know. It's just like the whole entire Black Widow movie as well too. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna show it after the whole entire climax already happened with taking them out. That, and everybody's Doctor Strange is the most dangerous person in the multiverse, when you literally have Wanda come through and just wipe out your whole squad.
Yeah, we'll wipe out the whole squad of, like, the most important people.
Yeah. And the most annoying part about this movie, in my opinion, America Chavez.
I knew you were gonna say it. I was getting ready for it.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with the whole character and the idea of it, that she has the powers just to go into to travel throughout the multiverse. But one thing, I felt a lot of, like, Finn vibes from Star Wars, where breathing, like how Finn would breathe heavy in almost every single scene he was in.
Right. That's literally like half of his lines.
Which is, and it's just poor writing at that point. But America Chavez, half of her lines were just screaming.
Yeah, I can see that.
And being helpless to whatever happens, and then miraculously somehow at the end of the movie,
she gets control of her powers.
She gets control of her powers perfectly.
Bang.
And I don't know. I don't really see too much of her. I don't know what they're going to do with her throughout the MCU, but we've been given a whole lot of characters at this point that I don't know what we're going to do with at this point. So I'd say other than that, though, again, really cool scenes. I like Doctor Strange, learned a lot of lessons.
It's a gorgeous movie. The music's really good.
Music's great. I like the whole concept of kind of having that horror design to it as well, too.
Yeah.
Like Marvel kind of took a chance on that one, and I think it looked pretty good. So,
Yeah.
But other than that, still a great movie. That's why it's got to be number 19, though.
Yeah. And just to clarify, like in this whole list of 30 MCU films, for me personally, like anything from like 26 to 25 down are slowly going from good to really good to great to excellent.
Yep.
So like these are all really good movies, even if like on a scale from like 1 to 30, like these are like 20 and 19 and things like that. But my number 19 is Spider-Man Far From Home. This one was a massive disappointment for me. Homecoming is amazing. Love that movie. Guess where I'm going to rank it. It's a really good movie. And so this is a follow-up. And not only that, but it's a follow-up to Endgame after Tony Stark had passed.
Yep.
So I'm just going to go and start with the problems I have with this movie. Peter's giving these super powerful glasses by Tony Stark with no instructions.
Yeah,
at all.
I know.
None.
I think everybody's going to say something about that.
Yeah. And then I love Mysterio. Mysterio's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, and he's cool. Like his power set is cool. I like kind of like how it's more technological. Like, like the illusions are made by all these drones. I think that's actually really cool. I like how in the MCU they twist some of these villains or heroes in some sense to a more like technological age. And I can appreciate that. However, this is like the 6th or 7th villain that's completely like motivated by not liking Tony Stark. And after a while, like that gets old. I understand that Tony Stark was, like the big star and he impacted many lives. So like logically, it's reasonable to assume that Tony Stark's life would have affected many people's lives positively and negatively. However, when that's the big plot point you use for a lot of your films, which you can't make as many films as you can comics at a single time, it gets really old. And but I do like him as an actor. Jake Gyllenhaal is great. Nick Fury's in here. Spider-Man's friends are good. Plot wise, it suffers a little bit. It tries to introduce like a fake version of like these of other dimensional beings. It's got really clever moments, and it's also a gorgeous looking movie. Some of the humor really takes me out of this movie. There's like a scene where like Peter Parker is like going into like a cabin like after like their bus stops, and there's like this really like there's this woman that comes in, and like it's really awkward because like she's like trying to help him, and it makes it like really inappropriate, and it just wasn't necessary. And so some of these things really kind of take it out for me. So my concluding thoughts on this movie is it's good. The action scenes are really cool. The payoff is good, but man, the story is kind of uneven. It's unfocused. A lot of the plot devices are not great. I don't like Mysterio's motivation necessarily, but the reveal at the end where he shows everyone Spider-Man's identity, that's really cool. That brought me back into the movie, but that was the very last thing.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that aspect, but that's my number 19.
Okay, nice.
What's your number 18, Kendall?
Number 18, and this is a shout out to a man that helped us get through high school. One of the messages we got was talking about we didn't rank this movie lower. We're talking about Coach.
Oh, Coach.
Our track and cross country coach.
Hey, Coach. Shout out to you, man.
Shout out to you, Coach. Thanks for the feedback. Love you, brother. But number 18 for me is going to be Eternals.
Eternals
for me, and again, if you've listened to the podcast, you see we put a lot of Game of Thrones content on there. There's a lot of the same my favorite actors from Game of Thrones on this, so that's going to be one specific bias that makes me put this movie a tad bit higher, I will say.
Yeah. Richard Madden.
Please come on the podcast. Second thing, I think they brought in the Celestials in kind of a cool way. I really liked they did that with the Eternals at the forefront of it. And the movie was just different. It had a different cast, different thought points that I liked. I know a lot of people didn't like it and just didn't like a lot of the ideas, but all the new stuff they brought into this movie, I thought was kind of cool. Again, like I said with the first two, beautiful movie, cool power sets.
Yeah.
You basically bring Superman into the MCU, except you're able to do it in a fashion that just looks a lot better than what DC ever could do with it.
Yeah.
Laser beams out of the eyes and flying and all of the, I think the chemistry between a lot of the Eternals it's pretty neat just in general too.
Yeah.
To know that they think they're from a Olympian world, but they're kind of a brainwashed robots that were sent just to birth new Celestials and monitor that process.
It's a really good plot twist, actually.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty effective.
Yeah, I like the plot twist on it. I'm trying to think here, but yeah, what did it do wrong though? There was a lot of plot points that it had to get through, and there was a lot of characters that just.
It's hard to name them all. Sometimes there's a lot of them.
Yeah,
there's like and I don't mean to interrupt you too much, but while I'm thinking about it, I wanted to see how many characters we could name, because there's Cersei, there's Icarus, there's Ajax, Druid, Sprite,
Gilgamesh, Athena,
Athena, Kingo I
think so.
Starts with a K.
Yeah,
it's gonna bother me. But there's a lot of characters to follow in this movie.
Yeah.
And that can be overwhelming.
Yeah, in some cases it was. And then you even bring in Cersei's love interest here within the movie as well too. And
yes, Jon Snow.
He's
Dane Whitman, I think. Yeah,
yep.
The Black Knight.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what that was a good end credit scene as well too. Just
that's one of my favorites.
See at the end of this movie as well too, but other than that, it was kind of a weird ending as well too, that all the Eternals just get pulled back in by the Celestial, and they're going to judge the Earth on its how worthwhile it is. And then to see was it Star Fox?
Yes, Star Fox is the one at the end. At the end credits.
Harry Styles.
Yeah, Harry Styles.
I feel like you can't bring that guy, like he's such a busy person of some sort and doesn't really have much of an acting background, where if you're going to make him lead a movie or something like that, it's going to be. Yeah.
We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out.
But. And the other two we didn't name are Phastos and Makari. So we got all of them. There's like 13 of them. But
other than that, it just gets confusing with how many characters there are.
It's a very ambitious movie.
Yeah. But I liked it. MCU. Coach, appreciate the feedback, but it's higher than number 30.
My number 18 is the first Black Panther movie. Now, I like this movie a lot. The highs are really high and the lows are really low. And that's the way that I kind of like to think about this movie. That's why, like, some people are going to say, well, you have Black Panther really low. Yes. And it's, but I have to clarify why that is for me. Chadwick Boseman is Black Panther for me. He is amazing. They couldn't have casted anybody else, I don't think. I think he's just perfect for it. Rest in peace. He is great as a lead, but the story that's written for him, he's actually kind of underutilized in this story. Black Panther isn't used as much as I think Black Panther should be, and they deviate the focus away from him too much. Killmonger is an amazing villain. He's really good. His motivations are actually somewhat, I have to be really careful when I say this. His motivations are understandable. Not that I agree with them. They're understandable from his point of view. He's a good villain. He's a good, basically like anti-T'Challa. I think he's like the yin to his yang almost, or like the yang to his yin. And I really like that dynamic aspect between them. But visually, this movie is impressive. It's gorgeous. Ryan Coogler does a great job with the music. The music and the world just brings you in this like immersive experience. But the plot falls apart at certain points, and there's too many side characters that I think are introduced in this movie where, once again, they're deviating away from Black Panther. And then one of the other things that really bothers me is this is a gorgeous looking movie, except for the scenes with Black Panther. And that bothers me a lot. The end fight scene, this is something I actually heard off of, I was just listening to, I was listening to like YouTube videos on autoplay, and someone just mentioned that like the end fight scene between Killmonger and T'Challa in the vibranium mines, like in the cave, looks like a PlayStation 2 boss fight scene. And that has stuck with me ever since. And that makes so much sense because it looks awful. It looks so bad. Then they bring in like these like rhinoceros with armor on them from out of nowhere, by the way. And
because it's cool.
Yeah, because it's cool, because they have to have some sort of war scene. And that did not work for me. So the highs are really high, but the lows are really low.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I feel like they should have leaned into more of using T'Challa and focusing on him a little bit more and taking the side characters out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
I would have liked more of T'Challa, maybe more of his childhood with his father and things like that. I wish they would have brought in some more compelling aspects.
Yeah. And I think there's like the plot kind of at the ending half of the movie where T'Challa loses or whatever, and you're just going to let an outsider rule your country. Like, he's lived in America his whole entire life, and he just comes through.
Yeah, and it's like, but he's Wakandan, so he can do that.
But
It's like, well, yeah, kind of, I guess.
And then tries to change all your culture around and stuff like that. It's like,
and then like a lot of people were like, oh yeah, he's our king now. And then T'Challa comes back and then beats Killmonger, and then all the people are like, oh yeah, T'Challa's our king now. And I'm like, your people are a little flip-floppity.
Yeah, well, at that point,
you need to address that.
At that point, if I was a total monarch at that point, like, somebody's going to the chopping block at this point. Somebody's
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like, I got to get some new nobles around here to support.
Yeah.
Help out my brothers, the Warden of the North.
The Warden of the North. So yeah, that's why it's number 18 for me. What's your number 17?
Number 17 is Iron Man 3.
Whoa, really?
Actually,
wait, I'm not surprised.
I was going to say, that's like,
sorry, it's surprising for me.
Iron Man 1, I feel like that would be the surprise look there.
Anyways, go ahead.
We just had kind of this is why we need a camera in here.
Yeah, we need
having to look back and forth at each other. But no, Iron Man 3, first thing I got to say, the Mandarin twist.
You don't like it?
No.
Really?
No, I honestly, a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of them didn't like it.
It's one of the weaker parts of the movie. I agree.
Second bad thing, I felt like with the whole entire suits being destroyed and stuff like that, it almost felt like this was the last movie Tony Stark would be in. Like, I feel like they set it up in such a way that was like, all right, Tony Stark's done making suits and stuff like that. He's just going to be a normal dude and live out his life. And this is the end of the series here. Nope, he comes back in Age of Ultron. And he comes back in
Infinity War,
Endgame,
Spider-Man.
So, I don't know. I feel like the ending scene of it where all the suits are destroyed and stuff like that, and he just makes a whole bunch of other new suits. A little bit of a plot hole there. Again, I just think Disney probably didn't know if he was coming back or not.
Yeah.
And again, we had a lot more to get out of him before the end of the character there. cool things, new suits,
Really cool.
really cool suits. Like they'll have their own little quirks to them. One was be able to like brace to pick things up. Just regular suits.
Yeah, there's one that's like the big bulky arms.
Yeah,
things like that. Just cool.
Yeah, it was almost like the same feeling as like Age of Ultron, when the Hulk Killer comes out. They're just cool.
Yeah,
like just when these new suit designs come out, it's just pretty cool.
It's a Christmas movie. This is one of my favorite Christmas movies.
The antagonists, though, like the power set, like the genetic modified humans or whatever, I don't know if I really like that a whole lot. They're like, they have so much power, they're able just to melt through this armor like it's nothing.
Yeah.
The plot device of over half of them blow up when they're switching over to the process and stuff like that.
I have very different opinions than you on this movie.
Him and the kid and stuff like that, it's cute in some instances, but he's dragging around his armor. That just doesn't feel like Tony Stark to me. Like it's almost like you have a callback to the first Iron Man when we didn't know what the heck was going on with the suit because he was still figuring out a lot of what it could do and explaining how it works.
I will say that one of the problems like with the kid is he like, since his suit breaks down and he goes into this cabin house thing where the kid is at, and the kid's got like a potato gun, and he's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm the mechanic, or I'm whatever. And eventually he like shoots a potato gun, like, hits like some glass bottle, breaks it. And he eventually says, well, okay, I'm Tony Stark. I'm Iron Man. And the kid picks up a newspaper and puts it like, he like slaps it to him. He's like, technically you're dead. I'm like, you had the newspaper. How did you not know who he was when he walked through the door? Do you or do you not know who Tony Stark is? So there are certain things in that movie where it can be a little bit jarring.
Yeah, and what it did well. Again, we just see Tony Stark use his mind to try to get out of these situations. Like that's where this movie did really, really well at, is that like the big lesson that he learned is he's more than just the suit. He's Tony Stark. That's why he's better than Justin Hammers or whoever else that's out there that tried to re-replicate this. Is they'll never be him. They'll never have his mind. They'll never have his endurance to win. So, but for me, number 17 is where it needs to lie.
All right. My number 17 that we hinted at just a little bit ago is the first Iron Man movie. And
excuse me, folks, I'm going to go throw up real quick here.
I'm just going to decide I'm going to quit the podcast. You about knocked the chair over. No, come back. Okay, yeah.
Scream a little bit there, folks.
No,
I'll be too dramatic.
I really like this movie. But man, it runs on nostalgia, and that's very hard to get behind over time. This movie has been in my top 10 for years. But it has slowly but surely made its way downwards. And that's just because of this. There's a certain aspect that I like to rank a lot of my movies on. And I think that people should know this. A lot of my close friends know this as well if they've ever asked me. But rewatchability is a huge deal for me. How many times can I watch this movie and still thoroughly enjoy it? Because when you watch a movie for the first time, of course it's different if you watch it a second or a third time. That's okay. That's to be expected. But if it really starts to wear down to where like you feel like, oh, I don't really feel like watching this movie right now. I don't remember the last time that I thought to myself, I really want to watch the first Iron Man movie. I think probably maybe my freshman year of college, which was about 3.5 years ago. So why did you look at me like that?
Another reason we need to have the camera. I'm just giving him the puppy dog eyes right now.
This movie, Tony Stark is fantastic. Robert Downey Jr. is the perfect casting. He is Iron Man, and that is solidified forever. I don't like the evil robot Jeff Bridges. I don't like the villain. It makes sense like logically, I guess, but I don't always. It's literally just This is a trend that's in a lot of movies. It's just the hero, but he's a bad guy. I've seen like skits and funny videos to talk about like, oh, like he's like the main hero, but he's bad. He's bad. Ooh. And that's not intimidating for me. That doesn't create a compelling antagonist all the time. It does for something like Black Panther, because Killmonger has a different set of clearly defined morals and values and goals, whereas Obadiah, the main villain of Iron Man 1, doesn't really as much. It's almost too simple where it makes it confusing, and I don't like that. There's no memorable music in this movie except for the end credit scene, which is just Iron Man. Yeah, like that only gets played at the end. So I love everything that Tony Stark does, and Pepper Potts introducing her is really awesome. You get more of an inside look on Tony Stark's life and his character. Development is really good. The scene in the cave is awesome, but everything from there on, for me, just over time wears down. It becomes a little bit less enjoyable and a little bit more like, okay, like this thing just runs. I personally feel like a lot of people put this movie very high solely because it started like a revolutionary thing for the MCU, for Hollywood in general. And I feel like I'm not a huge fan of things that run on nostalgia. I'm just not. So anyways, it can be fun when done in the right ways. And we'll get to that when we get to later movies, but that's my number 17. Okay. We'll let you number 16.
Nice. Well, this is going to be one. I think you'll probably have it. I think you'll have it pretty close actually. Age of Ultron. The second Avengers movie that's out there. Like I said with the Hulk, there's a tad bit of the Ooga Booga effect within this movie, where you're just having a lot of action scenes, a lot of characters doing cool things, and that's really cool. Don't get that twisted, but it just seems to be too much at sometimes. And there's just kind of like how I said with Eternals, like there's just too many characters that we're trying to work with now at this point. When you add in Scarlet Witch, when you add in Quicksilver, the antagonist, and then even the kind of the fake antagonist there at the beginning where they're fighting Hydra.
Yeah.
So that's a big off of it. But again, there is a lot of good in this movie. Again, the real antagonist in this movie,
James Spader as Ultron.
Beautiful voice, beautiful.
He's got a nice voice.
Yeah.
Like not in a weird way, but he does have a nice voice.
It's a villain's voice.
Yeah, this is the Avengers versus Robert California from The Office. And I'm okay with that.
But like you can tell how intense of a villain you are just by the way you speak. Like he doesn't need to shout. He just has a really low voice and almost speaks in a lower tone, higher than a whisper, of course, but
how could you be worthy?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like it makes you listen. Like he doesn't need to speak loud for the Avengers to listen or for me to listen. It's everything he speaks. It's like if we're watching it with my wife or family or whatever else, it's shh, Ultron's getting ready to say something.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is an amazing character, I think, and just the thought behind it of just seeing that humans have just destroyed themselves over and over and over again. They're not a worthy species. But at the same time, with all that being cool and being able to analyze all this history, the way I'm going to fix humans just from killing each other is I'm going to kill all of them. Some instances, I don't know exactly where the logic is, whether AI, glitch, whatever else it is, that I just don't understand it as much.
Yeah.
And I felt like we both watched a video that kind of ranked the 40 MCU movies and TV shows. And I think he said it best when this critic said you had a lot of good things. You had an amazing Avengers movie that killed box offices, did an amazing job, and you had all these great ingredients, but you made an okay meal out of all these great ingredients.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this movie is better than okay, just where that person ranked it compared to why I'm ranking it right now. But I think that's what it is. It was too much trying to attack and grab onto what the first Avengers was, while adding new plot points, adding new characters, that we got a little bit lost with how much it was out there.
Yeah.
So, Age of Ultron, my number 16.
My number 16, and we've already discussed this a little bit, but Marvel's Eternals. I like this movie. I like a lot of the characters. There are too many, I think. But I mean, if you are to introduce the Eternals, you have to introduce all of them. That's kind of, part of it. This movie actually, I was talking to one of my friends the other day. This movie would actually make a really good TV series.
I thought that would have been better for it, to be honest.
I think Disney Plus should have started with having this movie be one of their big TV shows. I feel like it would have gained a huge audience. Now, the budgeting is different because a TV show budget versus a movie budget are two completely different things.
And just the amount of money you make off of one or the other is completely different too. TV series, all you're looking for is subscribers on Disney Plus.
Right.
When you can get movie theater money from taking it to the cinema.
Yeah. So, but it's a very long movie. I'm kind of okay with that. But let me preface this right now. It is the best looking movie in the MCU, maybe besides Infinity War. This movie is absolutely outstandingly gorgeous. It literally that bumped it up probably a few spots, which is a big deal. A few spots based on visuals alone.
Yeah, I will never forget the scene, and I watched this movie again not too long. I watched a lot of these movies preparing for this, but where he says to, why am I having such an issue with names here today? The flying
Icarus?
Yeah, Icarus. I don't know why I couldn't think of that right now, but
Icarus,
it's like, Icarus, yeah. I've been waiting to clip your wings for a long time. And he has this power set where he's able to manipulate this metal and these.
Yeah, and he's able to shackle him down.
Yeah.
Super cool. That would be, that's Icarus being shackled down by Phastos.
Yeah.
Phastos. And there's I like a lot of the cool characters. Interestingly enough, the main character, Cersei, I don't think is a very interesting character. I don't think she's a great protagonist, but she shares enough screen time with the rest of them that I feel like it compensates a little bit. Because if your lead protagonist isn't strong, that's a big red flag for your movie. But if your side characters are really strong, then I think it makes for a good thing. So I like Thena and Gilgamesh and their relationship of he's saying he'll protect her because she's basically going mad. I like Druig. He's kind of sarcastic, but he's also very reactive, but he looks cold and calculated, things like that. But he actually does care about people. That's his whole thing. Is he does this really strange thing of where he can mind control people, and he does that solely based upon he doesn't want them to hurt each other. So he does something that's kind of bad, but with really good intentions. He's I can't stand to watch people just destroy one another, but I can stop it. So I can reasonably try to understand why he did that. So, and then Phastos, he's the one who helps integrate technology and gives it to humanity. And he sees where it goes good and he sees where it goes wrong. And I think one of the most powerful scenes is when he sees after they made the atomic bomb and the aftermath of that, and he was oh my gosh, what have I done?
And that's when he finally takes a break from.
This is a very broad story. It takes place over a long time, but it's going into all these characters who've lived this entire time and watching humanity, helping them develop, interacting with them, and they're mythological heroes, and I really like that aspect of
I did too.
So, yeah. And I like the Celestials. I like what they did with the plot twist, as you said earlier. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's got a lot of problems. It's too long. There's too many characters that they don't dive deep enough into, and the deviance are really strange antagonists, like side antagonists that they don't do anything with. And so I think that's kind of wasted. Other than that, this is a solid movie.
Yeah.
So in my opinion,
it scored so low just with everybody.
it did, and I was so surprised. But anyways, that's just my opinion. Yeah. But anyways, what's your number 15?
We've seen this one, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Okay.
Like you said, what it did great. It was a tribute to Chadwick Boseman. It's a serious movie. That's what the MCU I think has lost a lot of times, is they've wanted to put so much comedy in a lot of their movies, and a lot of times it does great. But like you see with Thor: Love and Thunder, it doesn't do so great. Eternals, there's not a lot of comedy really in that as well too. I think that's what kind of makes it unique and makes it great. Except with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, again, it seems like a lot of the characters are out of character just because they had to deal with the whole entire your bleed character not being able to perform in this movie. And you see a lot of things that just, I feel like, don't make sense in a lot of ways. Like, everybody, let's go in the middle of the ocean where these group of people live to fight them. Basically, you're telling everybody to go on a death mission almost, and out in the middle of their territory. It's like, why don't we just set up something very similar to what we did in that fight scene in our home base to be able to battle them, instead of going out on a giant boat
in the middle of the water?
And then at the end of the movie, it goes, "Oh, I forgive you for doing this," after you've had so many of your own people die from a battle between both of you.
Yeah. And his reasoning is like, oh, well, we'll be allies later because when the world comes for us, then we'll be able to basically wipe everybody out at once, I think is what he was hinting towards.
Yeah.
Which I can understand that, but in the moment it felt like a cop out.
Yeah. And I know with they talked about with the meeting or whatever, it's like King T'Challa was a king to us, but for them he's a god. And I was like, that's a really, really unique aspect on this of why we can't kill him. But in the same aspect, he's the only thing that can actually do damage on their side, really, like great damage.
Yeah.
Like, if he's out of the picture, what crazy big threat do they have to the Wakandan people?
I mean, they have the water bombs, so they have superhuman strength of some sorts. But without Namor, then the battle becomes a lot more even.
Yeah, exactly. And if they know how to defeat them as well too, it's just basically learning how to take out they can't breathe oxygen if they get out on land too long. I don't know. I do understand it, though. You don't want to have an absolute war going to wage out for the next several years just because you want to prove a point that he killed a few people. But I don't know. Capturing him would have been kind of cool too, but I know she wasn't in the best situation to do that. But yeah, I feel like in the first Black Panthers movie, you have the lead character in this movie, not a great warrior, not a great battler, and eventually somehow miraculously in this movie she's able to get crazy good fighting techniques and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's kind of brought out of nowhere. I thought King T'Challa trained his whole entire life to be able to fight as well as he was able to be the Black Panther, and she just miraculously picks it up on the way.
She's not even really a great leader. I think people just follow her because she wore the Black Panther suit and she shares blood with T'Challa. Yeah. And her mom died and her brother died. I think if it wasn't for those aspects, I don't think that she would. I just don't think she's a good leader.
Yeah.
I think that she's a good temporary fit for the Black Panther story wise, but I don't see that long term. So I hope that it's not long term.
Yeah. And then last thing with Ironheart, I feel like it was, and again, you can watch I say a lot of these same points within the video we had beforehand that we just discussed the whole entire movie Wakanda Forever, but I feel like they're trying to copy and paste a little bit of Ironheart and put it where Tony Stark is. And I don't think that's a great opportunity to do it. I know they want to bring back Iron Man and Tony Stark as best as they can, but I don't think it was on top of her to burden that on her shoulders.
I agree.
But other than that, like you said, Namor, awesome villain, one of my favorite villains. It seems like they
He's
were
pretty
doing a
good,
pretty
yeah.
good job writing some villains within some of Phase 4. And the idea was kind of cool at the end of it there. Again, the cut scene of like Wakanda will now be an enemy to the world, while we will be able to be hidden. But
Yeah.
same time though, I will give this movie a lot of grace because of you had to change production super quickly to be able to make a movie that Disney had told them they had to make. So
Right.
that is my number 15. Number 15.
All right. My number 15, and I'm going to knock this one out as quick as I can. The first Doctor Strange movie. This movie has some really great visuals, especially for the year that it came out. It was insane.
It's like a Harry Potter mixture with MCU
and Inception and things like that.
Yeah.
And it does mix around a lot of things. The villain is absolutely wasted because I don't even remember what was his name. He's basically like, this is like he's Doctor Strange, but he's a bad guy, you know. I can't even remember his name. He's played by Mads Mikkelsen, who's a great actor, completely wasted in this movie. And he wants to open the dark dimension. Oh man, this literally sounds like a cartoon. The movie itself, like, I love Stephen Strange as a character, very arrogant. He's a little bit like Tony Stark. He goes through a horrible accident. He's trying to get it healed. He can't. He's having this midlife crisis. Then magic just happens to be the thing that he comes across, and is able to become not the Sorcerer Supreme. He just becomes a sorcerer. And I think it's a very interesting aspect to kind of dive a little bit more into his character. The villain, super bland. Great cast. The love interest also really wasted in this movie. She's kind of been there for like plot device reasons. The astral projection stuff, really cool. Then it goes into like Dormammu and the dark dimension, which leads to like a very interesting use of the time stone. And so there are really good moments in this movie, but it is very cookie cutter, bland. Like, this is as Marvel movie can Marvel movie. So that's how I feel about it. That's why it's at number 15. It's basically straight in the middle. And I think it's got some great highs and it's got some lower lows. But it's enjoyable, and I've rewatched it a handful of times, and I still really enjoy it. I can get past some of those negative aspects for some of the funnier scenes, the quirky scenes, and just some great acting.
Yeah.
But that's my number 15. What's your number 14?
Actually, Doctor Strange.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
So I just piggyback a little bit off what you said. I loved Doctor Strange's acting and stuff like that with this movie. Again, that actor will always be Doctor Strange for me.
Yes.
Very, very similar to, again, Tony Stark, like you said. Even kind of a interesting backstory as well, too, of he had everything like he could ever want in his life. He gets into a big accident like Tony Stark did. Has to be able to return around from that, and his life changes forever for it.
Yeah.
I think that's just good writing. That's good storytelling. Even though it's simple, like you said.
Yeah.
Like you said, villain doesn't make up for what the movie is. There's a lot of montage stuff that has to set up Stephen Strange within this movie, which we'll get payback, and we do get payback later on within some of the Avengers movies that come out, like Endgame and Infinity War and all that. But like you said, there's it is kind of cookie cutter in some ways, but either way, that's why it goes directly in the middle. I didn't do anything wrong, but it didn't do anything amazingly great. Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. It's a good Marvel movie. Yep. Is what it is. That's a pretty good title for it. Okay. So my number 14 is Thor: Love and Thunder. I just rewatched this movie. Actually, I partially rewatched it a few days ago. I had to stop because I had classes and work to do. But then I got to finish it yesterday. I like this movie. This movie is really weird, and I like it. It is very strange. Now, I do agree that it almost sabotages itself in a way where the serious moments are brought down by just unnecessary amounts of humor. This is what I would call to be like too much of a good thing. What made Thor Ragnarok so great was that it took the first 2 Thor movies, a bland hero and bland movies, and made it fun and made it colorful. And that movie's fantastic, and we'll get into that way later. But this movie almost feels like a redux of that, and it's just it tries to play too much on what they thought that went really well for Thor Ragnarok, which is like, oh, more humor, more jokes, make the movie short. And I think that this movie could have really benefited from an extra half an hour. This movie could have benefited spending more time with like Zeus and the gods, or exploring more of like Thor and his relationship with like New Asgard, like at the moment, or like more time with him in the Guardians of the Galaxy, or more time with Gore the God Butcher. I think that this movie does a lot of things right, though. I think that I love the aspect, the opening scene's great, where Gore, his daughter died, and he's like the last of the disciples for like a god named like Rapa or something like that. And he basically finds this like oasis, and the god is just looking at him with like these other godlike creatures in this dense forest. And they're just laughing at him like, oh, like your only purpose is to serve us. There's no eternal reward or anything. You're useless. And if you die, then there's always going to be other people to replace you. And so the Necker sword, which is a super cool thing, calls out to Gore, basically telling him like to kill all the gods. And he's like, okay, well, if my only god that we literally were about to die for failed me, then I'm going to make it my life's goal to kill all of them, which is a very interesting concept. And then, I love the chemistry between Thor and Jane Foster. I think that whole like ex-girlfriend vibe is actually kind of fun. The dialogue is written very strangely sometimes, where I don't know if, I mean, it's kind of like, it's really like a rom-com. This movie is basically a rom-com. And that's why it is difficult to cast someone like Christian Bale as the antagonist for a rom-com.
Yeah.
So I can understand that, but I still think that Gore does a fantastic job with what he's given. The Shadow Realm that they fight in, super cool, where it drains all the color away. Visually, this movie is amazing. It is outstanding. The songs are fun. It's got like some rock songs, and it's got some really funny lines. The screaming goats are annoying. I don't like that aspect. But there's other things where like Thor likes to give heroic speeches, and he says like 3 or 4 times like, ha, classic Thor adventure. This movie, for me, I know it is ridiculous. I know it's short. I know it's ridiculous. He gives powers to the kids, but here's why I like that. And it's because for me, this movie's just fun. It's just fun. I just sat down by myself and watched this movie again, and I just had a good time. I wasn't distracted. I didn't really get on my phone or anything like that. I was just watching it in my dorm room. I just was having fun. I was having a good time. And I like that Gore actually kind of learned a lesson, and Thor did as well, where Gore learns just because one god failed me does not mean that they're all alike, does not mean that they're all devoid of love, because love is what drives both of these characters. And I think that that's a great aspect of this movie, is the emphasis on like love being a driving force for heroes and sometimes villains. And then it ends with Thor being this, he's basically like a dad. He's Uncle Thor to Gore's daughter. And then they are called as a duo, Love and Thunder. And I think that's really clever. And then the end credit scene introduces Hercules. And I'm really stoked for that, personally. But that's why I put it at 14. This movie's weird, but I like it.
Yeah.
What's your number 13?
Number 13 for me will be Spider-Man No Way Home.
Whoa. Spider-Man No Way Home or Spider-Man Far From Home?
Far From Home.
I was like,
sorry.
whoa,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Far From
man.
Home. Yeah.
Yeah, you about knocked me off my seat for a second.
Wrote some notes there wrong, but yeah. But yeah, Far From Home, I'm gonna ditto a lot what you said. Mysterio is meant to be a Spider-Man villain, but somehow miraculously he is a Tony Stark villain.
Yeah.
Within this movie, so that's where I think in some ways like Spider-Man in the MCU doesn't play out as well. But call it as you will. Again, like you said, we're basically throwing up the same exact villain concept over and over and over again to be able
Tony
to
Stark called my invention barf.
Yeah, and that's worth all this destruction and mayhem that you're going to cause, and you have a team of people that are behind you doing it. I don't buy it. But Spider-Man is awesome. I will always have a bias towards Spider-Man. The scenes are just really, really cool, where he's just doing his best to fight basically nature, which is super, super challenging. And he's thinking Mysterio's on his side the whole entire time. It was a cool plot twist that he's eventually against you, and you have to do your best to battle him. The ending fight scene where he finally was able to have his spidey senses come back to him
was pretty cool.
Last little bit to win.
It's pretty dope.
Awesome. He actually learns a really good lesson in this compared to Tony Stark coming in and saving me, that I need to learn to fight on my own and do this on my own, because now somebody's not going to be here to babysit me my whole life. I got to be an adult. And that's really what Spider-Man Peter Parker had I feel like in the comic books would have to fight with, is that you're such a young hero and you got to learn so much to be able to be where you need to be. So like that aspect of it, did a lot of good things right. Again, it's slightly better than average for me. So
all right, well, my number 13 is the first Avengers movie. I know this is going to be low for some people, but I still really like this movie. I've rewatched it too many times. That definitely probably plays an aspect into it. I'm just trying to be objective with where I'm at with it, because when we got it on like Blu-ray for the first time, I don't know if you all remember this, but they used to, I don't know if they still do, but they used to release like not only like Blu-ray, but like 3D Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
My dad had a 3D TV that we never got 3D glasses for, but we always said that we would. So we kept getting the 3D movie. So we had that. It was so exciting. And my brother would just watch it all the time. And oh my gosh, I got tired of it. But like when I watch it on my own, kind of on my own initiative, it still holds up really well. It's actually fairly simple. The plot is actually really simple, and that actually is a little bit why it's a little bit lower for me. Loki is really good in this movie. He's interesting. I love when you see the culmination, this revolution of this of these heroes from different franchises coming together like no movie's ever done, and probably never will do the same like it again. Is such a good concept. It's executed really well. The acting's phenomenal. The dialogue is actually really well written. The motivations are fairly clear for each one of them. And of course you got Nick Fury, you got Phil Coulson. A lot of good things to like about this movie. It's lighthearted, but also has its more serious moments. And when you see these heroes band together for the first time, like, you know, at the Battle of the City of New York, it's epic.
Oh yeah,
it's so epic.
We never seen anything like it in cinema history before.
Yeah, and you get the classic, dun 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 dun. It's so good, and it's hard to ever get that out of your head. Like that scene where the camera just pans around, like all like 5 or 6 of them. Just gearing up in a circle, getting ready. That scene is, in my opinion, the number one most iconic scene in the entire MCU. But this movie also is bogged down by, it's a little long, and there's a couple of character moments where I'm not always a huge fan of. But they do some interesting things with like Bruce Banner and the Hulk, and introducing Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk for the first time in this movie. I really like some of these concepts. They completely just they use Hawkeye as like a force for evil for like 90% of the movie. Then he just comes back and shoots some arrows.
Yeah, that's
And
a little bit.
you know, that's what Hawkeye does. Like he does shoot an arrow that blows like Thor's brother Loki off of his ship, which is really fun. But he doesn't do anything other than that, and that's kind of disappointing because Hawkeye is one of my favorite Avengers. But there's so many things that work, but for me, it doesn't do anything particularly excellently that would make me put it in my top 10. It does everything really well visually, really well acted, well scripted, plot's okay. Characters are really cool. The villain is okay. It does a lot of things really well, but it doesn't do anything particularly excellently. And because of that, I'm placing it number 13. What's number 12, Kendall?
That's fair. I've got the original Black Panther in my number 12 spot.
Okay. Yeah.
So again, you talked a lot about it. Again, there's probably some of the best songs and stuff like that, and just music in general for an MCU movie, in my opinion. And I loved that about this movie. Again, Chadwick Boseman, I feel like in my mind is the Black Panther. I just hate to see him Wakanda forever, that he's just no longer a part of this franchise. Just such a noble character. Such a cool power set, in my opinion. I'm glad they were finally able to give him his own movie and even they have a little bit of upgrades in his suit as well too. I think that's a cool concept of he's able to absorb kinetic energy and re-release it out at any given time. So that's awesome. Killmonger, like you said, like I think you worded it about perfectly, but like I understand like Killmonger and stuff like that. Like, and this is Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, having to do his best to be able to try to perfect his father's sins.
Yeah.
And within this movie, within Civil War, you see him learn so much, I feel like. And he's just such a merciful guy and understands a lot of it. And it's really cool there at the end where it's like, okay, we need to do more to help the world. The world needs to know about our vibranium. The world needs to know the medical treatment we can do and how we can protect and save the world.
Yeah.
I know that kind of goes back and bites him in the butt in Wakanda Forever, which is kind of a cool concept as well too, because there's never a right answer in the world.
Yeah.
There's always going to be some consequence or negativity to something.
Physical concept, yeah.
But again, like I already said, I think everything I had negative about it, like Killmonger is miraculously the king and everybody's just okay with it. An outsider comes in, is able to do this. Other than that, cool character, great acting throughout this movie, great fight scenes, even when they had that watering hole area when they're all having to like fight who could be the next.
Yeah, that's so
Panther.
cool. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone's dancing in the background, just vibing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but number 12 though, because at the same time, it does have some faults. It doesn't have a great high point that it can hit, in my opinion, to make it like, oh, that's incredibly, incredibly great.
Yeah. I agree. My number 12 is Captain America Civil War. This also might be lower than most people's. That's because this is the most strangely titled movie in the entire MCU. It is not Civil War. It is Captain America Friendly Skirmish. That's what it should be called, because this movie, when it first came out, all of my friends and I like we all went to the movie theater together, and we were like, oh well, everyone who's Team Iron Man sits in these 4 seats, and everyone who's Team Captain America has to sit over in these 4 seats. So we had fun playing around with stuff like that. I was Team Iron Man pretty heavily. Like the government should have some sort of say in what superheroes do, because they live there and they're, like they should be bound by, the law, by some laws of some people who just can't protect themselves like they can. Interesting concept. Now, of course, like it changes a little bit. So there's a lot of gray area between these two. So nowadays, not on either side or the other really. But this movie is really long. It drags in a lot of places. It can be really monotonous, but I like the dynamic that like everyone thinks that the Winter Soldier is the reason why things are happening. And so Captain America is trying to hunt him down before Team Iron Man does so that he can save him. Interesting concept. Good. Still building that relationship back with him. Black Panther's introduced in this movie, and man, is it good.
Oh,
he
man.
is the best part of this movie. Every scene he's in, he steals it. He's a very like nice guy, but he's also very like intimidating because he's basically like, I know how to handle business. But he's also he's on his own streak of vengeance, but he gets over that pretty, I mean, like late in the end. And I think that like, this is why they tried to recreate this in Wakanda Forever. And I don't think it works. But it works here for Zemo, also a very strange, misplaced character, to try to get these Avengers to all fight and go against each other. And Black Panther wants to kill him because he set off this bomb during this big meeting about the Sokovia Accords that kills his father. But at the end, he's like, I have seen what vengeance does to other people, and I'm done letting it consume me. He does it in a way that's very compelling on his own. And I really enjoy that. I thought that was very well done. A lot of the action scenes in this movie are gorgeous looking. They're exciting. The quote unquote war, I say that very loosely, at the airport is actually really fun, but there's too much dialogue. There's too much friendly dialogue that's shoved in here that makes it seem like there's like the stakes aren't high. There's no stakes. Like what? They're not going to kill each other. We all know that. So what are the stakes in this? Like they fight like friends fight. You know, that's kind of what it feels like. Spider-Man gets introduced in this movie too, and he has a great introduction. Fantastic. He's funny. He makes pop culture references. People make fun of him for being young and talking too much. A lot of good in this movie. So much good. And then it is completely drugged down by a super long movie, an overcomplicated plot. If you took Zemo out of this movie, I don't think the movie would change at all. Or it might change a little bit, but not nearly as much. And that's really disappointing. The end fight scene is really exciting when Captain America and Iron Man and the Winter Soldier Captain America and the Winter Soldier are fighting Iron Man. It's exciting. There's a lot of emotional tension because the Winter Soldier was directly involved in Iron Man's parents' death. And that's, of course, like, or his mom's death, especially. And so, like, I mean, that's a good motivator, but at the end, like, it's overcomplicated and it's really convenient when it needs to be. And I don't like that aspect. And the war aspect of it all doesn't feel like a war. It just feels like a friendly disagreement that has to do with some fighting, which has no emotional stake. So and it's literally almost never mentioned again. The Sokovia Accords are mentioned in Black Panther 2, and that's pretty much it. So, but that's what I have to say about this movie. It has super high highs. It's really, really solid, but it is drugged down. It's why it's not in that top 10 is because it's drugged down by plot, and it's drugged down by the underwhelming, strange sense of a villain and the amount of emotional stakes that aren't involved in the war aspect.
Yeah.
What's your number 11?
That's fair. I think that's really good points on Captain America. I feel like we should have named it Captain America too. It's almost like it was Avengers more than it was.
It's Avengers like 2.0 is what it is.
Yeah.
So, or 2.1 or something, 2.5. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, what's your number 11 closing out this episode?
Yep. Captain America, Winter Soldier. Be my number 11 here.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I know you'll have it a lot higher, but
most people have it probably where you do.
Yeah. I would say highlights of it. It's kind of cool concept. You bring Bucky back and he has kind of a lot of your same powers and abilities and stuff like that. Like your best friend you haven't seen. And God knows how long. He's like, oh, you're alive too, but you're my enemy. So that's fun. Captain America actually learned something in this movie. He didn't learn anything in his first movie, and he really didn't learn anything. He learned a little bit probably in Avengers, but he actually learned something really important here that really changes character for the rest of his life. Of you can't just blindly follow orders like a good soldier.
Yep.
You have to have your own thought process and be free like the American he is.
America.
Instead of being just a captain, he's an American.
And I'm proud to be an American. Anyways.
But it's just great. That idea of like the whole entire time he's been working here, it's been through corruption.
Yeah.
And they're building all these ships and war vessels, all this to go directly to Hydra.
So why does this film not make your top 10?
It's close.
It's very close.
It's very close. I would say I just don't think the highs are there to make it the top 10 material. Like this, like in my opinion, and Civil War is going to be in my top 10, of course, but like the stakes were there. Like at the end of the movie, they're going for real blood and stuff like that, trying to take out the Winter Soldier and stuff like that. And I don't know if I felt that as much within this movie here.
Okay.
And again, there's great scenes within this whole piece, but I'm not going to say there's a lot wrong with it, because there really isn't a lot wrong with this. But I just don't think the highs were there just to make it top 10 material.
Sure.
But it's close.
All right. Well, closing us out is my number 11, and that's going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I really like this movie. I love Sam Raimi as a director. I think he does a fantastic job of this movie. My opinion is obviously different than a lot of my friends' opinions, different than your opinion, of course. But I'm okay with that, because I think that Doctor Strange learns a lot about himself in many different ways in this film. He learns how to be a better mentor towards somebody else, and he also learns like how dangerous he can be given the right situation. And there's so many cool concepts. I'm not going to beat a dead horse with all of it, but the Illuminati, introducing Charles Xavier from the X-Men, and John Krasinski as Reed Richards for the Fantastic Four. And then Captain Carter from Marvel's What If is in here. And there's so many interesting and so many cool things. Scarlet Witch, I kind of agree with you on the point, and this is what brought it out of the top 10 for me. Scarlet Witch does go 0 to 100 pretty fast. Now, like, I understand that maybe in like the grand scheme of the multiverse, like maybe in other universes where similar things happen, she doesn't snap. Maybe this is just the one where it just is enough. It's just enough to make a person go overboard.
Yeah. That, and then like, again, I didn't say it in the first time, but like, I guess nobody cares about Vision anymore. Like, I just care about my kids now. Like,
yeah, poor Vision. Who's still out there, by the way. There's like the different version of Vision, but it's the same Vision. It's really complicated.
Yeah, there's so many characters nowadays.
You have to watch the WandaVision TV show to understand this movie. And I kind of get that, but I think that holds it back a little bit from like a more casual viewing for a casual audience. But I love the horror aspects into this movie. I love like the multiverse jumping. Sam Raimi's musical score in this movie is phenomenal. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when our Doctor Strange is fighting this kind of not evil, but this different version of Doctor Strange, this darker version of Doctor Strange. And they use musical notes to hit each other. And that's super cool. That concept, that's fun. That's like wizardry. That's sorcery. That is what I want. The rest of it does feel like like it was, very cookie cutter Marvel movie. But Sam Raimi puts his own twist in there. It kind of almost feels like it was directed by two different people. In parts of the movie, you can see the Sam Raimi, like Evil Dead part of him come out strong. And those are the parts that work the absolute best. Scarlet Witch is intimidating. Yes, she goes 0 to 100 real fast, but she's intimidating. She's extremely powerful. some of her some of her scenes are legitimately frightening, in just a casual sense. And America Chavez also does hold back this movie a little bit. She is a character who's not only a character, but she's also a plot device at the same time. And that is really strange. No pun intended. I didn't even think about that until I said
That's really
it.
strange.
But that's funny. No, I don't like that aspect as much. She has an interesting power set, and I have no problem with like the character in general, but I don't like that she's used half as a plot device and half as a main character, because then you have to treat her as both, and that's very weird. That kind of undermines it. It tries to make her super important in the movie, but it actually kind of undermines her importance in a way.
Yeah.
So that's why it squeaks out of the top 10, is because of those couple of reasons. But other than that, music's great. Visuals are fantastic. Doctor Strange is really good here. Awesome cameos, exciting scenes. I really like this movie. I think it's really good. But anyways, that's our middle 10.
That's our middle 10. Again, these movies are pretty good, actually.
Yeah, all these are pretty good.
Again, they're not the bottom 4, like Christian said. The MCU, whatever we talked bad about it, again, it does a lot of great things.
Yeah, it's like you put Black Panther at 18 and Wakanda Forever at 20. That must mean you don't like them. No, that's not true. Yeah. I do like them. Oh, you put Iron Man at 17. You don't like it. Yes, I do. I do like it. But you have to understand that, like, as long as they're not the bottom 4, they're good.
Yeah.
I like them.
Yeah.
I will rewatch them multiple times.
For sure. But again, thank you for everybody. Thank you everybody for jumping on the podcast here today. Again, make sure to follow us at the Big Screen Bowls podcast on Instagram. Make sure to check us out. Now they're on Apple, Spotify,
Amazon Music,
Audible. There's a whole big list of them. So wherever you like to listen to podcasts at, look up Big Screen Bowls podcast, and you will probably find us. So.
And be a part of the hashtag Bowl Nation today.
Hashtag Bowl Nation. If we get enough viewers, we'll get some hashtag Bowl shirts out here.
That's right. Yes. All right. Please share with everybody that you possibly can. And if you have any comments, suggestions, please let us know. You can message the Instagram page directly, and depending on what we get, we will try to answer. We want to interact with you all. Exactly. So, and we want you all to be involved in the process. And fairly soon, in the future, we are going to be having guests on the shows. So be on the lookout for that.
Yep. And if you're interested, also be free to comment on Instagram, whatever you need to be. We'd be glad to put you in the queue or see what a good topic would be for us to all discuss. So
yeah.
But other than that, take care, everybody. God bless. And we're wrapping around on Christmas time right now, so enjoy some family time.
That's right.